welcome everybody. We're in the studio here in Essentiale at Vitéz Utca. With us we have a guest, international.
Yes.
Very international, actually.
To say the least, yeah.
Yeah. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Ayman El-Farouki. I'm not going to say my whole name. It's way too long for the passport even. So Ayman will just be great.
Okay, and where are you from?
So I'm British, but originally I'm Palestinian and I was born in Egypt. So I've been traveling around a little bit and I've been studying here in Szeged for the last 9 years.
9 years?
Well, yeah, it's a 6-year medical program,
Okay.
but coming here I was quite naive at first and wasn't capable or aware of how to study properly. So 1 year I struggled because of that.
Okay.
Another year I struggled just because of a lot of physical misfortune, including both dislocating shoulders, dislocating knees, and a high blood pressure diagnosis. And then a third year just... I mean, I wouldn't say like mental health issues, but like personal struggles with balancing everything going on in family life, work, like study life, and just entered a mental block. And then once I took time to really focus on myself mentally and physically, it's really been smooth sailing since. Obviously some road bumps, a pandemic, and a few other things, but finally, as of a few days ago, officially graduated.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
Sure, it must have been. So, from Palestine?
Yeah.
Egypt?
Yes.
England?
Yes.
And now Hungary?
Yes.
And now what?
And now the goal is to go back to London.
Yeah.
I probably won't be able to get work as a doctor straight away in London, so I'll probably go to some smaller town that may accept me, which means I'll get more experience anyways.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of friends who'd be more worried about going to really small places, but I've lived in the UK already, and in my head, as long as I've got one place that does good coffee, I'll be okay.
Like here.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, let me hear more about, you came here to Hungary, that's 9 years ago?
Yes, yeah.
And was the original plan to go to Szeged or was it Budapest?
So when I was looking for alternative universities to go to, because I didn't want to stay in the UK, because obviously I grew up there from the ages, like I was there from the age of 11 to 18. And even though I am British and like English was always my first language, I always felt like a little bit of an outsider. So I thought maybe moving to another country with internationals might allow me to feel like an outsider among other outsiders and form a community. So when I looked into Europe and English-speaking universities, I found Hungary and Italy as my two major options. And I actually got into the Italian University Pavia as well as the University of Szeged. But I actually looked into how the teaching happens, and the University of Szeged was more hands-on, and actually you get to deal with patients earlier, and it's less using books, but actually more using the human body.
Ah, yeah.
And so that's why I chose to come here to Szeged. Budapest was never on the radar for me. I always thought it would have been too big of a place for me as a student, even though I was born in Cairo. But the less distractions I needed, the better, knowing myself. And I think Szeged was the perfect size for that. And I still got distracted plenty.
Okay. I guess the listener doesn't know what you're studying, so...
Oh, yeah, sorry. I've been studying medicine. General medicine, and hopefully later on I can go on to specialize. But yes, it's quite an arduous task, and the first 3 years of medical school, especially in Szeged, are notoriously difficult.
Okay.
So once I managed to finish those 3 years, things got much easier and more stress-free. But it was a really long road with a lot of like self-doubt along the way. And to get on the other side, knowing I got through all of it, is very satisfying, if that makes sense.
Nice. Let's have a cheers. Egészségedre.
Egészségedre.
Is it acceptable?
Always.
Always.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I come to this place as well.
Okay.
I mean, this and a few other reasons.
This is why you come to Szeged.
Honestly, as my family have been visiting, I've been taking them around a few different places, and I realized, like, Szeged, like, in many different corners, have things that are very special, even in comparison to other major capitals in the world, and things that people don't really appreciate while they're here until they're gone.
Sure.
And to be honest, for a lot of the international community, it's difficult for them to go around and explore and find those places. So sometimes I take it upon myself to take younger students who are friends to these like new places that they can find these, I call them like little places of like little havens that you can get away from all the stress from.
Okay, let's rewind the time 9 years back.
Yeah.
You arrived here in Hungary?
Yeah.
Alone? Solo?
I mean, yes. Yeah.
You came with someone you knew?
I mean, my family came to drop me off, but yeah, I've been...
Take you out of the plane?
Pretty much, yeah. They would have dropped me with the parachute if they could, but I think it was against a lot of laws. But yes, came solo, and actually throughout my whole time here, apart from a short period of time living with an ex-girlfriend for a little bit, I've been living alone the whole time. So it was a big transition coming from like a family of 4 and not being that independent to coming here straight away, and a lot of people might have been afraid of that, but there was something inside me that always wanted that independence. Sure. So I felt a whole new level of freedom once I came here. Honestly speaking, like, my personality hasn't changed that much from when I was younger. I've just grown more into it, and I think that freedom allowed me to really round out who I was as a person and my skills, like, and even the most basic skills. I never used to cook, and now I really do enjoy and love and taking my time with cooking, cleaning the house, cleaning clothes, just all the most basic things that you're sheltered from as a child. I really grew into and almost started to enjoy as an adult. Except, like, still, grocery shopping, just, I don't mind grocery shopping, it's just making the time to go grocery shopping.
I know the feeling, yeah.
If you go and buy the food, I will cook it and I will wash the dishes, but there's just too many things to do in the day for me to go to the supermarket. That's my only complaint about adulthood.
I guess that was what you're gonna call it, adulthood.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So when you came here, you didn't speak Hungarian?
Oh, no.
So let me know, when did you start learning it? Because I guess it would be
we have to start,
a big deal.
We have to start learning it as medical students in our from the first year to the 4th year.
You do?
Yeah, because we have to be able to get good enough in Hungarian to be able to communicate with the patients and also at times with doctors and when we do clinical practices. But I have a lot of friends who maybe didn't take it as seriously as I did. And I didn't take it seriously because of the importance within the medical field. But I took it seriously because once I came to Szeged, I knew I'd be here for a while, and I wanted to make it as much of a home as possible.
Cultural appropriation also.
Well, for example, you want to you want to improve your quality of life, and it's also, in my opinion, a sign of respect to be speaking the language of the country you're living in as well as possible.
Sure.
I'm not fluent, but I can hold up a conversation or two and keep it going, show people around and communicate with most Hungarians well enough for them to speak back to me in Hungarian, but be aware that I am not Hungarian. The accent never goes. It's really frustrating no matter how hard you try. But what really helped me with that sense is that I grew up bilingual and learned a couple of other languages in school. So at the moment I speak 2 languages fluently, and then another 2 relatively well, and then 2 basic enough to get me in trouble.
So it's English?
So English and Arabic fluently.
Okay.
And then Spanish and Hungarian on a relatively decent, I could easily live in those countries and communicate in those languages level.
Okay.
And then French and German, I have the basics and a bit more. I just need to top up and practice more, essentially.
Sure. That's good. Then you can be a European citizen.
Yeah, I'm naturally I'm naturally very good at languages, which makes me question why I went into medicine every day.
Yeah. Okay. So when you have, well, not anymore, but when you had free time, what did you do here in Szeged?
So one of my vices, well, not a vice, it's a hobby that I really enjoy, that I probably shouldn't considering my height, is basketball. And I fell in love with it completely from a young age. And coming here, and I think I live maybe a 5-minute walk away from an outdoor basketball court.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's Szeged. The size and proximity of everything in the center of Szeged is beautiful. It's the best possible thing for someone like me to go 5 minutes away, right next to the hospital, to play basketball 2 hours with a group of friends.
Sure.
My problem with basketball is that I also have dislocating shoulders and a dislocating knee. So that combination didn't go too well for a while until I figured out how to put less effort and think more, which is good advice for everything. Put less effort, think more in general. But yeah, basketball was my main sport that I enjoyed doing. But hobbies-wise in general, I love walking around the city. And there are places that some internationals, especially when they first come, might not know to go to, like the Botanical Garden in New Szeged, or Holtmaros, which is especially beautiful during autumn. And even like I knew people who didn't even know where St. István tér is and the water tower, and just they think that's too far from Szeged.
That's our small Paris.
Yeah, it's honestly, I love that view. And walking around in Szeged allowed me to also naturally be healthier. Yeah. And as I grew older here, I enjoyed going around and trying the different coffees in different coffee shops and appreciating the flavors and the tastes and the textures. Just, very basic little things. Basic little things keep me happy. Okay. That's the reason why I've survived here for so long. If you look for the happiness in the little things, the big things don't seem too bad.
Wise words.
I'm not sure if they're wise words, but they're my words.
Your words. Definitely. So what would you say when you came here to Szeged? What has been the biggest challenges of living abroad compared to England?
Yeah, so obviously the language. I still have friends who've graduated who still struggle very much with the Hungarian language, and their pronunciation might not be great. But the most difficult thing for me about living here was the academic aspect and the difficulty of it. And it's not even just the difficulty, it's managing everything at the same time. I found that the level of education in the University of Szeged here is actually more demanding than most universities, especially in the UK. So for example...
In a good way or a bad way?
Well, so entering the university is actually easier than entering a UK university. But being able to stay in and pass all of your exams in this university is way more difficult. And to give you an example, for our anatomy final exam in Szeged, you first have a written entrance exam where you have to get 60% to pass. Oh. To enter the exam.
Just to enter.
Just to enter the exam, where you then get examined in 3 different sections. Each section has potentially 50 different topics, and you just pick out one of each topic. And then after that, there's the histology aspect, where they give you a random, like, microscopic slide that you have to analyze and explain which part of the body that comes from. And then after all of that, the different teachers who've examined you get together and decide if you've passed the exam. While in the UK, for example, the anatomy final exam is a multiple choice question exam where you just have to get 40%.
Wow.
So while it's more difficult to get into universities there, you no doubt come out as a more accomplished theoretical physician from the University of Szeged. The difficulty that it comes with, I have learned that in order to go into an exam, it's not enough to study 70% of the material like it would be in other countries. Mm-hmm. You have to go through every single topic multiple times. And in some cases, some of these topics could have textbooks written about them. So you have to learn what to focus on, what not to focus on. And because they're oral exams, you never really know what you'll get questioned on. So that allows you to learn how to think faster on your feet and to develop that belief in your own knowledge and belief in your brain that no matter what someone may ask me, I hope I have something in there that's smart enough to figure out the answer. So in that sense, it was much easier to enter Szeged, but graduating and becoming a doctor feels way more satisfying. The journey has been much more difficult, and I'm going on to a future where I hope to be a doctor, where I know many people graduate from medical school in the UK and drop out of the profession because they're not as interested and they didn't work as hard for it. And that's partially why the NHS system might be struggling at the moment.
Okay.
Although, please do hire me. Thank you.
Okay, let's step aside education.
Yeah, great.
And because maybe people
Yeah, we should
listening
include
here,
all of Szeged in this.
Yeah. What are the biggest cultural differences from your eyes and perspective coming to Szeged from England?
Yeah, so for
Cultural-wise.
So for me, culturally compared to England, I've got to say it's not that different. Just obviously the language, but like the manner of the general population is relatively similar. I mean, in England, if you were to talk to someone on public transport, you'd be considered a little bit crazy. And I feel like that vibe is also slightly present here. While going to England for me from Egypt, for example, was a huge cultural shock.
Yeah.
So I think I wasn't culture shook at all once I came here because I already went through it once. Yeah, to be honest, the most difficult time was I think in around 2014, 2015. For some reason, like we just started closing all supermarkets completely on Sundays. And now I'm hoping that they're open just a little bit more. But that was the most difficult time period culturally for me because I'm like, I just want to buy something for the house. But I found it a very smooth transition here. Obviously, there can be mistranslation or things lost in between translation.
Sure.
But that happens no matter what new country you go to. But culturally, I didn't find it too jarring, to use a British term.
Sure. So, was it also price-wise that you chose to study here in Szeged, or was it
no.
only because of the higher education?
Well, it was because of the higher education, the different experiences, the fact that in my last 2 years of high school in the UK, I spent more time with my brother and his friends who were in university in London at the time. So studying wasn't necessarily my priority then, which made it difficult for me to get into universities in the UK, and I wanted to go somewhere different.
Sure.
And like I said, I could have gone to Italy, but in hindsight, Italian would have been too easy of a language to learn. And now I have Hungarian, so it's a huge advantage, even if only 10 million people in the world speak it.
It's still a very difficult language to speak.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite Hungarian dish?
My favorite Hungarian dish... you know, there's a really good place here that does very good palacinta, like traditional Hungarian palacinta. Although I do always come for the almond pancakes here in Essentiale. I don't even have to order anymore. They see my face and they already know what I'd like. But I'm a sweet tooth by nature, so traditional Hungarian palacinta I really like. Goulash in the bread bowl is of course very popular to all internationals who come here. And to be honest, I have high blood pressure, so all of the very salty food I can't really afford to have because I have to take care of that. So a lot of the saltier dishes, and especially the meat and pork dishes that I know are incredible, I do sadly have to avoid for my own health's sake. But moving here food-wise wasn't that difficult for me. Just learning how to cook and figuring that out, which was a nice change.
Sure. Have you been around outside Szeged? Have you been to the Balaton? Have you?
So Balaton I still haven't been to. I've been
really?
to. Yeah.
After
you believe
9
it?
years?
You think so? Yeah. You'd think I'd make the time. I think my problem was I always found it so easy that if I had like a long weekend, instead of like going somewhere in Hungary, I'd usually go back home to, like, for example, London.
Oh, yeah.
It's only a 2-hour flight, so it was really easy for me.
Okay.
But I have been to Pécs, for example, which I actually did a quick 3-week summer course in Pécs before coming to Szeged, just to top up on my knowledge and just really enjoy that city, which has a very beautiful center, although I haven't been back for a while. I have been to Debrecen as well, and where else have I? I've been to places around Szeged, like
Kecskemét.
Kecskemét I haven't been to, but I have been to somewhere like Hódmezővásárhely, but that was mainly for clinical practices often. And yeah, just going around, going around Hungary in general has been pleasant and nice, but to be honest, nothing really compares to how you feel when you're back in Szeged in comparison to the rest of the other cities, in my opinion. It just has a perfect balance of youth, beauty, the architecture. Like, the architecture really is amazing for a city that's nowhere near as big as others around the world. So looking around and appreciating the beauty of Szeged is something I don't take for granted.
Sure. Why choose Szeged?
To live in general,
Yeah.
it's you step into the city and you walk. Firstly, the train station is remarkable. I actually really find it beautiful, and that's one of the first things that struck me. And you walk through the city and you already feel that it's a young city, filled with students, obviously, and especially if it's not raining so much as it is today, you can see the beauty, the way the sun shines off the buildings. Once you step into Dugonich and you see that fountain like glistening with the light bouncing off of it, you see people enjoying it, not just young but also families walking together, smiling, because there's an infectious attitude about the city as long as you don't let the stress get to you, which often it can. And that's the difficult part of managing not only being a student but being an adult. It's learning to focus on the most beautiful parts of life we usually take for granted. And like walking down Vitéz Utca, because from Dugonich you can see all the way down Vitéz Utca through to Széchenyi tér, and especially when there are festivals, and as well as the Summer Wine Festival, you see it completely filled with happiness, and there's a liveliness to it that's unmatched. And that also the amount of festivals here, like, I don't know how they have so many festivals, no. But it's always a pleasure.
It's the wine, I guess it's the wine.
I mean, you have the wine festival, the fish festival, you have also certain meat festivals, and there's always live music, which is great. And it's just, it infects the whole city with a sense of happiness that it's tough to avoid. And people can avoid it, I mean, but it's much easier to involve yourself within it and be part of it than to avoid it and resent it. And I've really enjoyed being a part of that community. After 9 years here, I really do feel like I'm a part of this community. You walk down like 10 minutes in Szeged and you'll have to stop and talk to at least 2 or 3 people.
Sure.
So that's also a positive for me. It might be a negative for some people, but you really do get a sense of community that you wouldn't, for example, in somewhere like Budapest or also like London. There's a sense of friendliness among the people and understanding. And I think that's why you choose Szeged. Not just because of the really good food, the really good coffee, but the natural vibe of the city is welcoming, which also isn't necessarily true about every city, let alone every Hungarian city. So I find Szeged extremely welcoming.
If you could, if you could meet yourself 9 years ago, what would your biggest advices be to yourself coming here? Is there something you would have done differently? Something you regret? Anything?
There might have been 1 or 2 people I would have told myself not to get involved with, but that's okay.
But if you
but like genuinely, I would tell myself to enjoy it fully, which I think for the most part I have done. To believe in yourself more, because looking at myself back then, I would not have expected myself to still be here after all of the difficult experiences I went through. And just maybe I would have tried to invest myself even more within the Hungarian culture, just because I'd like to be a little bit more fluent in the language. But I can honestly look back and look at myself now and say, I'm going to be leaving Szeged soon, and I don't know when I'll have time to visit again. But it won't be on the top of my list of places to visit, because this was my home. And I squeezed every single part of it out to enjoy it as much as possible for every moment I was here. So I'm not going to regret being here. I'm not going to regret how I lived here, because I loved it here the whole time, or like 99% of the time. and I'm going to move on with this always being a part of who I am and who I will be. And looking back on that, I think my younger self would be able to look at me and be relatively happy with who I am. And I think Szeged helped make me. So I appreciate that about the city.
Good to hear. So now you're going back to England?
That's the plan, yeah.
And then what? Are you ever gonna come back? Are you gonna...
So this is the advantage of languages. I'm going to try and like break into the workforce in England, but it's quite difficult to start working off as a doctor in the NHS system if you don't have certain training contracts and you're coming from abroad. Sure. Actually, I had to do an exam that proves I speak English. Which is, you know, just next level funny considering.
Now you can also prove you can speak Hungarian, so...
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the only problem with that is the specialty of medicine I want to go into is the one where you have to speak the language completely fluently. Oh. So that's the only reason why I'd be hesitant to work here.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I'll first try and get my way into England, and if that works out, I'll try and stay there for the long run. But if that takes too long, I'll have to look into other alternatives, which may be a German-speaking country, which maybe coming back here. I mean, I've always been aware, and Szeged has helped me learn that any plans you make are always going to have to adapt. So I now never make a set plan and think, oh, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to be disappointed. I just make a plan knowing it's going to have to change along the way, and you know what? That's going to be part of the plan.
Sure. And the last question here is, before you moved here, what were your expectations of living in Hungary?
Oh, I had no expectations.
Really?
I mean, I didn't know that much about Hungary. I was only 18, relatively well traveled for an 18-year-old, but still never even had Hungary on the mindset. Did you know where it was
in your...
I mean, yes, but only because I did enjoy history. So, you know, the Austro-Hungarian Empire is relatively important when you look at significant world wars.
Sure.
But I never even... I think I only met one Hungarian before, and he was in my super posh, privileged international school, so that probably wasn't the best example of Hungarians in general. And so I had no expectations when coming here. And I think that's what helped me not get culture shock.
Sure.
Because I didn't have any expectations. So I'm like, okay, so this is what it's like. Instead of, oh, it's like this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know.
And so that really helped me fit in quickly, I think. And feel like, you know what, this is going to be my city. And so much has changed about this city while I've been here. Even this area, especially this part of Szeged now, is extremely populated with cafes, some restaurants, even some fruit stores and grocery stores and bars that weren't here not just in the past 9 years, but in the past 6 years. So the amount that even just this area, and I was living just down the road, grew, it felt like the whole city was growing around me.
Sure.
And conveniently getting closer to where I lived. It's it was part of the plan. But I just feel I really enjoyed being a part of the fabric of the city. And moving on will be difficult, but I'm very happy to have in the autobiography that I will never write, this will definitely be the longest chapter. My life in Szeged, no doubt.
Your life in Szeged.
Yeah.
And that brings us to an end.
Thank you very much. It was great
having you here.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
We hope to see you back here in Szeged soon.
Yeah, I mean, if I do come and visit, I think this will be one of the first places I come to.
Sure. At Essentiale.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. And what's your favorite food here? What's your favorite breakfast place here?
So my go-to coffee is an almond milk flat white, although oat milk is also great. Sure. But my go-to breakfast will always be the almond pancakes.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's a classic.
I mean, it's not a classic. It's just the best possible pancakes you can get in Szeged.
Do you get a special version here?
I mean, their version is always special. Everything's special when it's made with love.
Is there written an A on it?
No, not yet. No.
Not yet.
Yeah, maybe in the future when I visit.
When you come back, in 5 years.
Exactly.
Sure. But thanks for joining in here.
Yeah, thank you.
Hope to see you in the future.
Yes, hopefully.
And all good from now on.
Yeah, thank you very much, Frederik.